And we begin with that sad breaking news we are just learning about as we come on the air. Val Kilmer, the legendary Hollywood actor, has died aged 65 after a battle with pneumonia.
Hollywood has lost a true icon. On April 1st, 2025, Val Kilmer, a bold and unique actor, passed away at 65. He was famous for amazing parts in Top Gun, The Doors, Tombstone, and Batman Forever. Val wasn't just an actor, he was a storyteller with a burning passion. He fought throat cancer for years, along with the struggles that came with it. He leaves behind a legacy as daring and layered as the people he brought to life on screen. This isn't just a look back, it's a tribute to a man who touched our hearts, made us think, and kept us believing, from his first dreams to his last moments. This is Val Kilmer's story. Val Edward Kilmer came into the world on New Year's Eve, 1959, in Los Angeles. Right in the center of America's movie magic. He was the middle kid of Eugene and Gladys Kilmer, growing up with two brothers under the bright sun of California's San Fernando Valley. It was a place full of palm trees and big possibilities, where dreams were chased and caught under the glow of studio lights. From the start, Val was surrounded by beauty and challenges. His childhood had the lively spirit of a creative home, but it was shaken early by tough times. When Val was only 9, his parents split up. Divorce is hard on any kid, and for Val, it shook his whole world, even though he and his brothers stayed with their dad. After the breakup, things between Val and his father grew distant. Over time, Val said they barely connected, a gap that only got wider as years went by. He once shared about those early days. "I was quiet, always thinking, lost in my own little world." He didn't show his pain openly, but it shaped how he saw everything, with care and wonder. That split at home might have been what first pushed him towards storytelling, a way to figure out life by stepping into someone else's shoes. But if the divorce was a big moment, it was nothing compared to the heartbreak that came later. 8 years later, in 1977, Val's life broke apart. His younger brother Wesley, only 15, passed away in a drowning accident. Wesley had epilepsy and had a seizure while swimming. It happened so fast and hit me so hard. Val was just 17, still a teen, still finding his place in a messy world. Suddenly, he faced a loss so deep it would leave most people speechless. Wesley wasn't just a brother, he was a buddy in creativity. They made little movies together, wrote stories, and shared silly laughs. Losing him felt like losing a piece of himself, the part that laughed the loudest and dreamed the biggest. Years later, Val looked back on Wesley's death with clear, heavy words. He said, "It made me see life in a new way. I had to ask big questions about why we're here, way before I was ready." The sadness didn't fade. It showed up in his acting, in the roles he picked, in the fire he brought to every scene. It wasn't just pretending for him. It was a way to express, to heal, to keep going. And yet, through all that hurt, Val didn't give up. He kept moving, step by step, like he was driven by the energy of loss and the need to live. That same year, he made a brave choice. He decided to chase acting for real, not as a pastime, not as a passing thought, but as something he was meant to do. Around then, he tried out for the Julliard School in New York City. He didn't just get in, he became the youngest student ever welcomed into their top-notch drama program. A kid from the Valley carrying grief and a spark of something special, now walking the halls of one of the best acting schools anywhere. It was a star born from pain, but it showed that even in the darkest times, something strong could grow. Val's early years weren't a perfect story. They were real, messy, and sometimes so sad it hurt to think about. But those moments planted the roots of the artist he'd become. His losses gave him understanding. His broken family gave him depth. His brother's death gave him a sense of urgency that time isn't promised, and we have to use what we get to make something, to reach out, to feel something true. Looking back, you can see how the boy who lived through a divorce and quietly mourned his brother turned into the man who could slip into roles with such heart and accuracy. It wasn't just acting, it was real. Val Kilmer didn't just play people, he lived with them. He carried them, poured himself into them, and it all began with a kid in the Valley, figuring out a world that didn't always add up for him. After losing so much, Val Kilmer didn't hide away. He turned to art, still holding the weight of his brother Wesley's sudden death. While in high school in Los Angeles, Val found his way to the drama department almost by accident. But once he was there, something clicked. The mess in his heart found a home in the words of Shakespeare, the truth of Tennessee Williams, the raw feelings of Chekhov. For the first time, he saw a way to pour out everything he felt and all the things he couldn't say. He wasn't just good at it, he was made for it. At 17, still hurting from loss but full of drive, Val did something incredible. He auditioned for Julliard's drama program in New York City. Julliard wasn't just a big deal, it was where the best actors in the world were shaped. Val didn't just get in, he became the youngest student they'd ever taken. In one moment, the kid from the valley stepped onto a bigger stage, one that would turn him into the artist he was always meant to be. For Val, Julliard was more than a school, it was a safe place. The tough daily work, the long hours digging into characters, voices, and movement, it gave his sadness somewhere to go. It gave his passion a focus, his restless soul a home. He threw himself into the training, often staying late when others had left. His classmates, many who'd later shine too, saw him as intense, fully in, and always chasing truth on stage. He wasn't just learning to act, he was learning to live again. Even back then, Val didn't stick to the usual path. He wrote and starred in a play called How It All Began, something new he made with friends. It showed he wasn't just a performer, he was a storyteller at heart. Someone who didn't just say lines but shaped them, gave them life, and mixed in his own story. That creative fire would carry him through his whole career. Years later, Val said Julliard saved him, not just for his job, but inside. I was in a tough spot. My brother had just died and I needed something bigger than me. Julliard gave me that. The challenge, the order, it kept him going, kept him believing in what he did. That belief guided him, even when things got shaky, on stage and in life. As his time at Julliard wrapped up, the next part of his story started with a bang. In 1983, Val hit Broadway in Slab Boys, a rough coming-of-age tale set in 1950s Scotland, acting alongside Kevin Bacon and Sean Penn. He didn't just keep up, he stole the show. Critics noticed his quick humor, strong presence, and the quiet storm he brought to every second. This wasn't just another theater kid, this was someone special, someone with depth. Going from Julliard to Broadway is a big step for many actors. For Val, it was proof that his pain, his fight, his endless push to understand people, it all belonged somewhere. It mattered. The boy who once felt lost and quieted by sadness now stood under the lights, heard and seen by people who didn't know his past but felt it in his work. And though he was still carrying grief on stage, he was unstoppable. Slab Boys was the first time Val's name lit up a marquee, but it wouldn't be the last. Hollywood was already calling, and the wave was building fast. With Julliard behind him and Broadway in his pocket, Val Kilmer was ready to jump into the bright lights of movies. Long before he was Iceman, Jim Morrison, or Batman, he was just a young guy on a New York stage, telling stories, not because he had to, but because it was the only thing that made the world feel alive again. Val Kilmer didn't just show up in Hollywood, he burst in with a grin and a punch. His first movie role came in 1984 with Top Secret, a wild, funny flick from the folks who made Airplane. It mixed Elvis tunes with Cold War spy stuff, and Val played it straight, which made it even funnier as Nick Rivers. A rock star thrown into a crazy spy mess, Val sang every song himself and danced like he'd done it forever. For a Julliard-trained stage guy, it was a surprising start, but it clicked. People saw something fresh, charm, timing, and a knack for laughs that went past silly gags. He wasn't just funny. He was in charge, sharp, and impossible to look away from. And Hollywood paid attention. The next year, he starred in Real Genius, another quirky comedy, this time as a smart, sassy science whiz. Val's character, Chris Knight, was cool without trying, full of witty smarts and that easy vibe that'd become his thing. He made it look simple, sliding between laughs and brains like it was nothing. These first films showed an actor who could do more than crack a joke. He could make you buy into the person behind it. Then came 1986. At just 26, Val Kilmer's life flipped when he stepped into the flight suit of Lieutenant Tom Iceman Kazansky in Top Gun. Iceman was bold, exact, and totally sure of himself. The perfect match for Tom Cruise's wild maverick. With his icy blonde hair and sharp stare, Val didn't need many words to grab you. His take was cool, steady, and stuck with you right away. In a movie full of guts and speed, Iceman was the one people remembered. Not just for that famous line, "You can be my wingman anytime." The film took off worldwide, and Val's role made him a name everyone knew. He didn't just play a part. He built a character that stuck in pop culture. Iceman was smooth, calm, and dangerously cool, and Val wore it like it was made for him. Looking back, he chuckled about the on-screen rivalry. Iceman didn't like Maverick, and that was half the fun. That playful spark and full-on effort made his work unforgettable. With Top Gun, Val Kilmer went from a rising star to a real movie name. The kid from Julliard had landed, and he wasn't turning back. After Top Gun shot him to fame, Val Kilmer switched gears from jets to fairy tales. In 1988, he turned into the dashing swordsman Mad Mardigan in Willow, a fun adventure led by Ron Howard. With messy hair, fast talk, and slick moves, Val dove into the wildness of the role, giving a performance that was big and full of heart. Off-screen, the movie changed his life too. It's where he met British actress Joanne Whalley. Their spark on set grew into love and later a wedding. But Val wasn't about to stick to one kind of story. In 1991, he took on a part that stretched him further than ever, stepping into Jim Morrison's shoes in Oliver Stone's The Doors. This wasn't just copying, it was a total transformation, body and soul. Val didn't just act like Morrison, he was him. To convince Stone he was the guy, Val made his own audition tape. 8 minutes of spot-on singing and moves, channeling the Lizard King so well it was spooky. He watched every video, heard every song, and sang every note in the movie himself. The Doors' surviving members couldn't believe it. They couldn't tell Val apart from Jim. Critics were blown away. Roger Ebert said Val's work was the best thing in the film, calling it a true star moment. The voice, the look, the wild poetry, all there. Val sank into the role so deep that people wondered what was real. Then, in 1993, Tombstone came along, and another unforgettable character was born. As the sick but sharp-tongued Doc Holliday, Val gave a performance that was loud and fragile at once, a man fading with flair and fighting with skill. With a southern twang and playful eyes, he dropped the now-famous line, "I'm your huckleberry." That phrase stuck with him forever, a mark of his one-of-a-kind magic on screen. By the early 90s, Val Kilmer had shown he could do it all. He was a leading man who could vanish into a rock legend, a cowboy, a fighter, and bring humor, heart, and unstoppable talent every time. 1995 was Val Kilmer's big year, a time that locked his name into Hollywood's story. First came Heat, Michael Mann's epic crime tale, where Val stood tall next to giants like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. As Chris Shiherlis, the calm, smart thief, Val brought grit and soul, holding up the film's wild energy with raw power. That same year, he slipped into the shadows as the world's favorite hero in Batman Forever. Val suited up as Bruce Wayne, mixing dark intensity with quiet hurt, facing off against Jim Carrey's Riddler and Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face. He gave the role a steady grace. For Val, it wasn't just a gig, it was a dream come true. The kid who loved comic book heroes was now one, on the biggest stage around, with Heat and Batman Forever. Val wasn't just wanted, he was a force. Val Kilmer's climb came with some bumps behind the scenes. His fierce love for acting sometimes clashed with the big movie world. By the mid-90s, that raw, all-in energy had tagged him as one of Hollywood's trickiest stars. Directors loved his skill, but sometimes wrestled with his fire. On Batman Forever, things got tense. Val's deep commitment bumped up against director Joel Schumacher's style, and the strain got so real that Val said no to coming back. Schumacher didn't hold back later, calling Val the most psychologically troubled person I've ever worked with. That line fed the idea that Val was brilliant but tough to manage. It grew bigger in 1996 with The Island of Dr. Moreau, a mess of a movie already falling apart. Working with Marlon Brando could have been a high point, but it turned into a warning story. Val butted heads with the cast, the crew, and finally director John Frankenheimer, who said, "I'll never climb Mount Everest and I'll never work with Val Kilmer again." The film flopped, and the off-screen chaos stole the show. By 1997, people in the biz called him part of Hollywood's Bad Boys Club. Gifted, fiery, and hard to predict. But Val saw it his way. In a later chat, he said, "When they call me demanding, it's usually a cover for their own lack of prep. I care about the work. I'm intense, not impossible." Folks who knew him well backed him up. Director Philip Noyce, who worked with Val on The Saint, brushed off the talk. Most of it's unfair. The real Val Kilmer's a sweetheart. He's the hardest worker I've seen. Through every stumble, one thing stayed: Val's love for his craft. Misunderstood or not, he kept pushing for truth in every moment. For him, being good wasn't enough. It had to feel real. Off-screen, Val Kilmer's love life was as lively and gripping as any role he played. In the early 80s, before he was famous, he met music star Cher at a birthday bash. Even with her being over 10 years older, they clicked hard. Their romance was wild, full of surprises, and stuck in memory. Even after it ended, they stayed close. Cher once said Val was one of the few who really got to her heart. In her goodbye after he passed, she wrote, "Val, you were wild, brilliant, impossible, and so loved. Brave in your illness. I'll miss you forever." Years later on Willow, Val fell for his co-star Joanne Whalley. Their on-screen spark turned real, and in 1988, they got married. For a bit, they were Hollywood's dream pair. They had 2 kids, daughter Mercedes in 1991 and son Jack in 1995. Val loved being a dad, bringing his kids to work, sharing his world with them in a close, personal way. But fame and family don't always mix easily. Just weeks after Jack was born, Val and Joanne split. Their divorce wrapped up in 1996. Still, even with the pain, Val stayed a hands-on, caring dad, one of the roles he took most to heart. Over the years, Val's name popped up with big names like supermodel Cindy Crawford, singer Carly Simon, and actress Daryl Hannah. Tabloids loved calling him a heartbreaker, but Val was softer about it. In his book, he spoke warmly of his exes, focusing on the friendships that lasted after the love cooled. Through all the headlines and attention, Val never married again. His longest, truest bond was with his kids. Mercedes and Jack later followed him into the biz, finding their own creative ways. Mercedes acted with him in his later movie Pay Dirt, while Jack took on indie roles. In his last years, Val said his real joy wasn't fame, it was fatherhood. "No regrets," he once said. "Once you're a star, you're always a star. But being a dad, that's what counts most." By the mid-2000s, Val Kilmer started stepping back from the spotlight. Fans noticed he wasn't at big events or in major roles, and talk about his health began to spread. In early 2015, he ended up at UCLA Medical Center. The news was fuzzy about throat issues, but guesses grew. Worried fans followed as Val, a strong Christian Scientist, played it down. He told people there was no tumor, no big deal, just a small thing. But behind it all, the truth was heavier. Val has had throat cancer since 2014. He kept it quiet, not wanting to face how serious it was, leaning on his faith in spiritual healing instead. For a while, he held off on heavy treatments, believing prayer would carry him through. It was only when things got worse and after his kids, Mercedes and Jack, begged him that he went for chemo, radiation, and a tracheostomy. Those steps saved him, but they took a toll. The tracheostomy changed his voice forever, turning it to a rough whisper. For an actor known for his bold, lively tone, the one that filled stages and brought Jim Morrison alive, it hit hard. But Val, always tough, faced it with guts. He kept showing up, often with scarves or ascots to cover the tube in his throat, making a need into a style. Talking got tough, sometimes tiring, but he wouldn't let it hold him back. In one chat, he said straight up, "I might sound worse than I feel. Every day's a pick, breathe or eat. But I'm still here, still me." Faith kept him steady. He talked openly about belief and prayer, how they held him up when nothing else could. He didn't second-guess his spiritual road, he owned it. In 2017, Val shared that his cancer was in remission. A tough win. His voice was different, but his heart wasn't. He was still the artist, the dad, the dreamer, showing even in quiet, you can say a lot. After years off the radar, Val Kilmer came back big in 2021 with Val, a documentary made from his own home videos. It gave a raw, close-up look at his life, the highs, the lows, the sickness, told by his son Jack. The film let Val shine loud, even without a voice. Val teamed up with Tom Cruise in Top Gun: Maverick, stepping back into his classic role for a scene that packed power and feeling. Though short, his moment, helped by a bit of voice tech, was the film's heart. Tom Cruise called it unforgettable. For Val, it was more than a quick part. It was a comeback, a farewell, and a win all rolled into one. In his final days, Val Kilmer lived low-key, with family around, still creating, still dreaming. Though he eased off acting, his voice and spirit in art never dimmed. On April 1st, 2025, Val passed away peacefully at home in Los Angeles. He was 65. Pneumonia was the final fight for a man who'd already faced so much. Love poured in from everywhere. Friends, fans, screen legends sharing their hearts. Cher called him brave. Josh Brolin remembered him as a brilliant spark. His kids, Mercedes and Jack, honored him as the dad who pushed them to live with meaning. And now, as we say goodbye, we remember Val, not just for the roles he took on, but for the soul he put into them. He was Iceman, he was Doc, he was Morrison, he was Val, and he always will be.